May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. I'm a little under the weather. You know, before we start, let's just take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out on annual meeting Sunday, even without storms, even without weather. There's anxiety in the room. There's a lot of endings and a lot of beginnings. Elections always bring up some anxiety. Things that are new, things that have changed. Let's take a deep breath in and out and be aware of God's presence with us today. From the Latin, ubi caritas et amor Deus ibi est. Have you heard those words before? Maybe you've sung those songs in choirs. Where true charity and love are, God Himself is there. Wherever you see love, wherever you know that love is present, wherever in this world that you have experienced love, you know that God is there. Today you will hear the choir sing this anthem, and this chant, Ubi Caritas, goes all the way back to somewhere, we don't know, between the 4th and the 10th centuries. It's a prayer that has been sung for well over 1,000 years. Ubi caritas et amor Deus ibi est. Wherever true charity and love are, God is there. And this chant, you won't understand the words unless you took Latin or know them by heart, but the chant that they will sing, these words go on to say, the love of Christ has gathered us into one. So let us rejoice and be glad. And from a sincere heart, not a forced heart, not a superficial heart, not a nice heart, but from a sincere heart, let us love one another. We are gathered into one.
That's good.
What's going on? All right. Sorry, I'm hearing voices.
If you'd like, the kids are upstairs. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Gerardo, your microphone's on, man. Wherever you are. All right. We are gathered into one. And the chant goes on to say, lest we be divided, beware. Let evil impulses stop, and let our controversy cease. And in the midst of us, let Christ be our God. For wherever true charity and love are, God is there. I've been thinking and praying about what I might want to say to you on this annual meeting Sunday. We will hear lots of good news today. We have so much to be grateful for. In our lives together as a parish, we have so much to celebrate. But what to say now? Aware that even as we carry so much joy, we also carry so much grief. This Friday evening, our beloved parishioner, Scott Bruns, just 58 years old, died unexpectedly. And we got the wind knocked out of our sails. And there are so many of you families who have experienced so much pain and loss this year. the Curtis Swan Asante family, the Freeman family, the McFeeters Lenedy Elkins family, the Williams Mazatics, the Carlines, so many families. The scriptures today speak of patterns that emerge in different ways at different times with different people, teaching us to keep walking in the way of wisdom and truth, remembering who we are, and yet always seeking what God is calling us to next. The scriptures today also tell us in Corinthians, a really hard reading about a community in controversy and turmoil, to be gracious and humble and forgiving with each other, to let divisions cease, and to be one bread, one body. There is one God of us all, and each one of us is precious in God's sight and beautiful in our collective gathering. We will hear today about wonderful things that we've done together as a faith community in the last year, and I want to thank you for your faithfulness and for your generosity. It's astounding. And each one of you for your beautiful ministries and for your best efforts and for your care for each other and for the ways that you care for our community and for the world. And there's such a beauty in our life together. It's a fragile beauty. And at the same time, there is a strength to it, the strength of a fierce love that allows us at the very same time to celebrate the births of children, of Rook and Aiden and Vincent and Avery, born into families of this church this year, to delight in the baptisms of those children. This year we baptized Maeve and Raven and River and Rain and Blake, and to dance at the wedding feast of Aubrey and Sarah, and to applaud the monumental accomplishment of making our building more accessible with the completion of an elevator project that took us years. Thanks be to God. We rejoice in the hard work of shared ministry, and we can celebrate all of that. And at the very same time, in the very same moment, we can hold such profound sadness in our heart and mourn the deaths of our beloveds, Scott and Bob, David Kaiser, who taught us to be kind, Chris Carline, who taught us to dance and to laugh, Maydell Howard, who taught us to be tender with each other, Sharon Williams, who taught us to hold on to each other. We can celebrate with our red shoes on. I'm trying to take mine off so I can show you. With our red shoes on, the ordination of a gifted priest and friend, Pastor Gerardo. And at the same time, care deeply for the sick and the suffering, and soothe the dying, and struggle and walk with each other through the ups and the downs of this life. What we are doing here together isn't just worshiping on Sunday mornings, although that is at the center of our lives together, thanking God for all that we have and all that we are, and seeking God's guidance for where we're going next, and asking God's forgiveness when we hurt each other. But what we are also doing together is sharing our lives with each other, our hopes and our hurts, our joys and our burdens. And we're feeding the hungry and there are all kinds of hunger. And we are binding up each other's wounds. And we're looking at each other in the eye and recognizing Christ there. Wherever true love is, God himself is there. Ubi caritas et amor et justitias. Last week, late in the week, two of our parishioners, Mary Gilhooly, who's an 8 o'clocker, raise your hand, Mary, and Veronica Griffith, who's a 10:15er, raise your hand. Two women who don't even know each other sent me the very same article that appeared in the New York Times, written by a rabbi, Sharon Bruce, who was talking about an obscure section in an ancient 2,000-year-old text that changed her life. And this article reminded both of these women, both of these parishioners, both of us. They reminded them of St. John's, of who we are and how our life together matters. The rabbi writes, I encourage you to find and read this article, it's beautiful. She writes, buried deep within the Mishnah, a 3rd century Jewish compendium of writings, is a description of an ancient practice that teaches us this, that when your heart is broken, when the specter of death visits your family, when you feel lost and alone and inclined to retreat, you show up. You entrust your pain to the community. And the Mishnah goes on to describe this really moving ritual that took place at the time of the Second Temple. Several times a year, hundreds of thousands of Jews would travel to Jerusalem, and they would climb the steps to the Temple Mount, and they would enter this enormous plaza. And picture this, all of the people en masse would turn to the right, and they would start circling the temple counterclockwise. Picture that. Thousands of people. Meanwhile, among them, those who were brokenhearted, the mourners, the lonely, the sick, would make the same ritual walk, but they would turn to the left and circle in the opposite direction, every step against the current. Now, each person who encountered someone in pain would look them in the eye and inquire, what happened to you? Why does your heart ache? My father died, a person might say, and there are so many things that I never got to say to him. Or my partner left and I'm completely blindsided. Or my child is sick and I don't know what to do. And those who walked from the right would offer a blessing. May the Holy One comfort you. And they would add, you are not alone. And they would continue to walk until the next person approached. The rabbi goes on to capture the lesson that emerges from this ancient ritual. She says, when you walk the path of the anguished, do not take your broken heart and go home. Do not isolate. Step instead towards those who you know will hold you tenderly. And on your good days, the days when you can breathe, show up then too. Because the very act of seeing those who are walking against the current, the people who can barely hold on, and asking with an open heart, tell me about your sorrow, may be the deepest affirmation of our humanity. especially and even in terribly inhumane times. And there it is. I'm reading it on the page and I'm thinking to myself, there it is. That's who we are. That's what we do. That's what we're doing. Here. God is here among us. Mary said to me, isn't it profound when we begin to realize that everyone is carrying a burden? And Veronica wrote to me, I love this. She said, this is the story of St. John's. And sometimes, she wrote, sometimes we go right and sometimes we go left. At different seasons and times in our lives, sometimes joyous and sometimes in anguish, we come, but we are all still here walking together. We will hear so much in the annual meeting of where we've been this year, and let's celebrate that because it's so good. But if you ask me where I think that God is leading us in the coming year, I will tell you from where I stand right now, I'd say life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who walk this way with us. So let's go deeper this year, now. Let's make it a priority. Let's go deeper past the friendly hellos and the casual acquaintances and go deeper into the waters of our faith and go deeper into more connected relationships with each other. Let's look each other in the eyes and let's ask each other, where does your heart ache? And let's ask each other, what brings your heart joy? Praying, ubi caritas et amor, where true love is among us. Deus CBS, God is here. Amen.